Today we're with Dr. Harley Naumann with the Animal Sciences Division. Harley, what have you got here today?
What we're sitting here standing by is a bale of Sunn Hemp Hay.
Sunn Hemp. Now, most of our growers haven't planted Sunn Hemp before. What is Sunn Hemp?
Well, Sunn Hemp is a warm season annual legume, and it's something that we've been studying here for about 10 years now, looking for some potential plants that we could use for summer forage when we need it the most in these cool season grass-based systems.
And a summer legume forage.
Summer legume forage.
Which brings a little different aspect to what we're talking about.
It does. You know, I like working with legumes for a number of reasons, but you know, one of the major benefits of this plant in particular is its ability to fix nitrogen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that, you know, that gives you something back besides the forage that it provides. You know, it does some good for your soil as well.
Because you're harvesting this in the vegetative stage.
We are.
So it's not going to the seed or anything like that. So all that nitrogen is in the plant itself and not in the seed.
Yeah, in fact, our research has showed that in the height of its vegetative growth, as much as 100% of the nitrogen in the Sunn Hemp plant is atmospheric sourced nitrogen. Compared
to like the soybean crop is only about 2/3.
Okay.
Because a lot of it comes from the soil, it's, you know, from the soil. So 100%, and of course a lot of that goes back into some of that goes back to the soil too for the next crop.
That's right, and so when you know, all of these roots following the harvest of this plant that are loaded up with that nitrogen are going to deteriorate and return that nitrogen back to the soil. And then, you know, something else we've learned through our research is that even during the growing season, there is nitrogen that is being basically returned from the plant back to the soil and then shared with the grasses that are growing around the Sunn Hemp. So when it's grown in a mixed plant community, it's literally bringing nitrogen from the atmosphere into the plant and then also into the soil and shared with the plant community.
So you could grow this with another annual grass or maybe even a perennial grass.
Right, you could, and we do, or we have done a lot of that. We've interseeded Sunn Hemp into perennial tall fescue based pastures, and have shown exactly that effect where you've got the Sunn Hemp fixing the nitrogen and sharing it with the perennial grass, and it's just good for the entire system. And
that'd be a great grazing system, I suppose. Then.
That's right.
So this was a one-shot deal. You all planted this Sunn Hemp about when?
These pastures were planted on July 10th.
July. Wow.
Yeah, which a lot of folks might consider a little bit late, but we have determined that we've planted Sunn Hemp as late as the last day of July and still gotten fantastic stands out of it that we could harvest before first frost. This was a one and done deal, and I'll just give you a little bit of background on what we were trying to do here. You know, we've been in a drought now for, as of today, about 15 months in central Missouri, and we're short on hay. And so we're looking for a crop that we could get out here and get growing that is drought tolerant, and Sunn Hemp is certainly that. And so we needed this drought tolerant crop to try to produce a little bit of a hay crop to kind of get us through this winter. And this is an ideal crop for that, because in the face of a drought, it's not going to present toxicity like a summer annual grass, like a sorghum species would, or like a pearl millet might, you know, with the nitrate accumulation that they demonstrate during drought. This plant does not do that. And so this is what we chose to go with, and it's, you know, again, planted on July 10th, harvested on September the 5th, and so we're looking at about 55 days after planting, and preliminary samples in these fields out here showed that we had about an average of 4.5 tons of production per acre.
So in 55 days, you made 4.5 tons per acre.
That's right.
Of biomass.
Of biomass, vegetative biomass.
Of a high protein, because what's the protein of that going to be about?
Well, we're going to do some sampling on these bales today and figure that out. But in our prior research, we'd say we probably average about 14 to 16% protein at this stage.
Oh my goodness! You know, this is more of a stemmier type legume.
It is.
Are we still getting most of our benefit from the leaf, or does the stem give us a bit more than a normal grass plant would have?
Well, largely you're getting benefit from the leaf from a protein content standpoint. One of the unique characteristics about Sunn hemp is that the stem is hollow, and it's kind of curious to us as to how that presents itself from a forage nutritive value standpoint. The fiber in that stem is highly digestible, and so while this, you may look at this plant and at first glance say that's pretty stemmy material out there, right? Well, the stem is providing some good nutritive value in that it's highly digestible fiber, and so that that provides energy to the animal that's consuming it.
Wow. So not only are you getting a good protein, the whole thing's digestible compared to some of other crops would be.
Yeah, I mean, largely, I wouldn't say the whole thing is digestible.
Right, exactly.
Right? But largely, yeah, it's a highly digestible compared to others at the same stage of maturity.
So this could be done in pasture renovation, or if you have a cool season annual crop ahead of this, then you can follow it with Sunn hemp, and then you're ready for another cool season annual now that you could plant.
That's right. I mean, now in this field, we could turn around and come in here with maybe a cool season annual grass, something like wheat, cereal rye, triticale, something like that we will overwinter and graze early in next spring or late next winter. That's one option. Or, like you mentioned, in a pasture renovation, we could come out here with a cool season perennial grass like tall fescue, orchard grass, whatever your flavor might be, and overseed this right now and have that ready to graze mid-spring next year.
So this really fits well into those situations. And like you mentioned earlier that you could graze this, if you grazed it, you can get several regrowths out of it during the season.
You can. We've demonstrated that up in northern Missouri in some of our research where in a rotational grazing system, the livestock seem to self-select on this plant down to about a 12-inch residue, and that allows plenty of stem to be left behind for regrowth to occur. And so we'll return to it about every 21 days or so and have regrowth there to graze.
Oh wow. Oh wow. So you could plant this, say, since it's a warm season legume, you probably can't plant it till about May, right? Mid-May?
Yeah, at the earliest, that may be how it shakes out. We typically say as soon as the soil temperature approaches about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, then you're ready to go with Sunn hemp. And so in some years that can be mid-May, and some years that's the end of May, depending on where you're at.
But then you're probably going till frost, practically. I've seen this in October, it's still growing.
That's right, and actually as the temperatures kind of cool off and you get some of the dry, hot conditions off this plant, you'll see it actually start to perform really well in October. And so, yeah, you can take it all the way to frost. Now, this plant being a warm season annual, it's pretty obligate under those conditions. After first hard frost, this plant is gone, right? It's going to die.
And does it deteriorate fairly quickly then, because it's so high in proteins? And
fairly quickly. You'll see the leaves deteriorate really quickly, and the stems will be there for a little while. After you get a snowfall or two on it, then it all lays down. And yeah.
So it's not going to be used for our deep into the fall, early winter grazing or anything, but we could certainly use it up till that point.
That's right.
Or hay it maybe the last time. And
Right.
carry it through. Since it's so aggressive, you probably didn't have to put few, if any, herbicides on this, did you?
No, there was no herbicide management used once this was planted. There's no need to do that, and the canopy closes up on it pretty quickly, and it's pretty competitive.
Yes.
And so you don't have a lot of weed problems growing up in this crop.
I see a little bit of grass, but not much at all, really.
That's right, and that's residual perennial cool season grass that was in this pasture. So.
And if I wanted to make hay out of it, if I harvest it for hay, mow it maybe 6 to 8 inches, you said, and
if you would like to try to get some regrowth out of it, you'd want to hay or mow it for hay as high as you can. And so if you could do 6 to 8 inches, that would be ideal for getting some regrowth out of it. If you start cutting it below 4 inches, for sure you're probably not gonna get a regrowth out of it.
So then you could have got this for hay September 5th and then had a forage that you could graze till frost.
You could.
Yes, yeah. That's great.
You certainly could.
Now, seed cost is sometimes expensive on this, right?
It can be, depending on the, you have to shop for it, of course, but when we started doing research on this crop, we were able to find sources of seed that cost around $1.36 a pound, somewhere in there. Of course, prices of everything are up right now, and so you're probably north of $2 a pound for seed right now.
With that 20 pound per acre seeding rate, or?
Well, so it's variable on your seeding rate depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So in these hay fields here, we were targeting a 30 pound per acre pure live seed rate. And we have planted it at 20 pounds per acre. We've planted it at 40. It depends on how much forage you want out there. There are some benefits to higher planting rates. Would be decreased stem diameter. We have observed that. Lower planting rates, obviously more affordable. So it depends on what you're after.
But even though the seeding rates, oh my goodness, it's going to cost me $60 an acre on seed, but I have no nitrogen fertilizer, and more likely no herbicide costs. So that's all your expenses for 4.5 tons per acre.
That's right.
Other than mechanical cost.
Yep. And if you think about what that cost looks like compared to price of hay right now in this drought, I think it pencils out pretty well.
Yes, it does.
I mean, we're looking at, I know I've seen some legume hay at higher than $180 a ton. So that works out pretty well.
And you've got $20 a ton in these, at the most, if not less. Well, thanks so much, Harley, on this relatively new crop that you've been doing some research on, Sunn Hemp, that can be used for grazing or for haying. And it fits into such a wide management scheme, whether you're wanting to stockpile for the for hay or grazing throughout the summer slump.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for chatting about it.
All right, thanks, Harley.
Yep.